Over to you, Julian.
Okay, welcome to this session on Power Platform Fundamentals. I'm Julian Sharp. If you don't know me, I've been involved in Dynamics. Well, actually, my background is actually as a DBA a long, long time ago. I used to work for a company called Ingress, if you've heard of them. So my background is actually doing data, but then I got involved in doing CRM solutions. And from that, I got involved in Dynamics and into the Power Platform. And I build solutions around Dynamics, Power Platform, and Azure. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, so I spend a fair bit of my time now, actually more than I used to, doing training. And I'm an MVP in Biz Apps. And they're my contact details if you want to get in touch with me. I'm going to get rid of me off the picture now. And let's talk about what we're going to do. I'm going to have a brief introduction to the Power Platform, just to put us into understanding what we're talking about. Then I'll talk about the exam. I'm then essentially going to go through what's in the exam fairly rapidly. We'll talk about the value of the Power Platform and then the major components. And then I'm going to give you loads of links at the end and resources to help you if you're going to be taking this exam. You can ask questions at any time in the chat or at the end, save them for the end. I don't mind. Right, let's dive in. So, introduction to the Power Platform. What is it? Well, essentially, it's a set of tools that enable you to build business applications or functionality to provide users with the ability to create applications for web and mobile devices, to be able to analyze data, automate data, and generally solve business problems in what we call a low-code way without requiring professional development. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But essentially, it's a rapid low-code development environment for building solutions to business problems. I mean, when you get into building solutions for businesses, you can either buy off-the-shelf packages and customize them, or you can build stuff from scratch. But the Power Platform sits really in between that, allowing us to build quickly without having to require deep technical skills, but still create really quite good solutions. And it's not really a Microsoft thing, this idea of low code, no code. It's something that's come from the industry because there aren't enough developers. There aren't enough people who can build web applications or build Windows applications or build systems. For instance, I think it's estimated if all of us who could build apps, or developers who build apps like me, we need to build about 3,000 a day. There's just not enough people. So the idea of the Power Platform is to enable more people to build things. And the Power Platform is essentially grouping together a number of different technologies that Microsoft has generated from different parts of Microsoft. So the Power Automate came out of automation of workflows within SharePoint and other parts of Office. Power BI came out of the data team, and Power Apps started as a Microsoft Garage project. What they did is they brought all these together to create this platform, and it is a true platform for building business solutions. So we're going to be talking about Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, a little bit about Power Pages and Power Virtual Agents as to what those are. And really, when you get into what we require for the exam, it's really to understand it's very high level, the fundamentals. If you've taken any other fundamentals, they're very much high level, understanding which components are used for what purpose. So why would I build a Power App? What's its use cases and its capabilities? When do I use Power Automate? When do I use Power BI? Or be able to say, if I have this scenario, what should I use? So it's basically understanding the components. And we have these five major tools. So essentially, Power Apps are for building web and mobile applications, so form-based applications for collecting data, and performing actions on data. We've got Power Automate, which automates across systems and within systems. We've got Power BI, which is for analyzing your data, creating insights into your data. Power Virtual Agents allows you to create chatbots that you can then deploy into your website or in Teams or even to Facebook. And Power Pages, which is the latest of the Power Platform tools, allows you to build websites to expose your data to customers. So build like a content management system so you can interact with your customers. Because all the other tools are more about internal usage. And then underneath those, we have a couple of key things. The first, which is connectors. We can connect to data via over 1,000 different connectors. We talk about using the data where it lives. through connectors. So we can connect to Azure SQL, we can connect to Oracle, we can connect to SAP, and then as well as Microsoft systems like SharePoint and things like cognitive services. We can also get to loads of third-party systems such as ServiceNow or SAP. We've also got Dataverse, which I'm going to talk a bit about in a bit, which is really a cloud-based data store for the Power Platform. And Dataverse enables a huge amount within the Power Platform. We'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. And then we've got AI Builder, which allows you to do AI on data and on visuals without understanding anything about data science. So often when we look at the Power Platform, we often look at it like this, where we've got those 5 major tools underpinned by a number of common services. Dataverse, we've also got some other things in there which are just to add in. They're adding more things all the time. We now get these little pretty pictures to try and help you understand what it's about. And we'll be drilling into a few of these in a minute. So let's talk about before I get going, let's talk about the exam. I think it's always useful to understand what an exam is and what its scope is. And fundamentals exams are really about, you're new to a technology, you need to understand the basic capabilities or scope of what the solutions are. Now, I think when you get into the Power Platform fundamentals, it's a little bit more doing than some of the others. And it's changed over the years. When it first came out, it was really about, oh, you've got to build an app, build a flow, build a dashboard. Now it's sort of talking more about the business value and understanding some of the capabilities, use cases. They've gone less technical, more higher level. We'll discuss a bit about that as well. So like all the fundamentals exams, there's Microsoft say between 40 and 60 questions. You only have 45 minutes. The questions are really short. Each question is separate from each other. There are no case studies, no labs, and there's multiple types of questions, but we don't get the complex question types. So if you've taken any other Microsoft exams before, you don't have to do these build this question, say, how do you do things? They're very much choose an option or select the various capability. You don't get a long preamble. You often just get a single sentence as to what you're going to be doing. I've got a link there. If you've not taken a Microsoft exam before, I've got all these links at the end. Don't worry. The exam demo is like it's a simulation of what you go through when you sign up for the exam and start the exam. It shows you what the exam interface is like. It also shows you a number of question types. So it shows you the single choice, the multiple choice, the drag and drop, or the active screen. Now, we don't have all the question types in fundamentals. We tend to have the simpler ones. So we don't have case studies. We don't have the build list, as I've said, or the hotspot questions, where it's all about how you do things. Fundamentals are about the high level why and what, rather than the how. Now, when you look at exam, I think it's always very, very useful to look at what we call the objective domain, or the skills measured. And the Power Platform currently has 6 objectives. So the first one is the business value. Then there's core components, then Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtualization. And it's got a percentage against each one. You notice here how small the percentage is for Power Virtual Agents. It says between 1% and 5% of the exam is on Power Virtual Agents. And we're going to look deeper into each of these. But it's always useful, I think, when you look at any exam, is to look at this scope of the exam. This defines its objective domain. And when you go into the exam page, there's a thing called the exam study guide, which actually gives a breakdown within these. We're going to essentially go through that breakdown of each of these areas, and I'll try and explain what it covers in like an hour. So this is going to be a rapid run through. I'm also going to give you some little hints on some sort of things you need to understand, some really key bits of information that are vital if you're going to be taking this exam. So there's a few little call outs. We haven't got enough time to do everything, so I've concentrated on a few key ones. Notice here the word demonstrate, rather than describe or identify. The verbs actually mean things in Microsoft exams. Describe tends to mean, okay, you just got to describe between things. Identify means, okay, choose between different options and identify their capabilities. Demonstrate often means something a little bit more. Like a little bit more hands-on relationship. So we need to understand maybe how we use this. And I'm going to say it's quite useful for this exam for you to get hands-on building stuff. For instance, I think it's really important to go through the labs and maybe build an app, build a flow, build a Power BI dashboard. If you've not done before, now this is a really basic level, the simplest level building, but you need to have done this to pass the exam. And I'll give you a link to the labs at the end. So let's talk for the first one, the business value of the Power Platform. And that's it, it's between 20 and 25%. And it's actually got 3 different objectives within it. The first one is describe the business value of the Power Platform services. And you can see there it's got 6 bullet points. We often refer to these tassel topics in the exam. And this essentially says what you're going to get asked on. So the little hint about any Microsoft exam is when you have to write an exam question. I've written exam questions from Microsoft in the past. I don't tend to do it now. But in the past, what you do is say, Julian, can you write 3 questions on describe the business value of Power Platform services? And I'll go pick a bullet point and write a question on it. So here we've got, how do I gain insights with Power BI? How do I build applications with Power Apps? How do I automate with Power Automate? How do I use connectors, which we'll talk about later? And how do I create chatbots using Power Virtual Agents? So let's talk about the value. Let's just try and understand what the value of the Power Platform is. This is a thing I've used before. Why we actually need the Power Platform, and what the real problem that we're trying to face is. So imagine you're a manager within an organization and you've got a business problem to solve. You've been given some sort of task to do, and you need a system to track what you're doing and give you the reporting so you can report to your manager. So what do? Is you go to IT and say, I need a system to help me with that. And IT turn around and say, well, have you got a budget? Because most IT spend is maintaining the current IT infrastructure, the IT systems, the keeping business as usual running. They have very little budget for new things, typically less than 5%. So the manager goes off, he gets a budget, or he or she gets a budget, they come back and they go, IT go, yeah, I can probably get to that by 2025 because we've got this massive backlog of work and we're busy doing this. There's time resource constraints. Even if they've got the resources available, then they've got to understand the business. Often these are complex business processes involved. So what do? Is you appoint a project manager and you appoint a business analyst who then goes and spends time trying to figure out what the process or the business process is about. And all that costs money. You probably spent £30,000 before you've even started writing the system yet. And so most systems never get off the ground because they're going to take too long, there's no budget, or they're going to be too costly. So what happens is, do people stop doing these things? No, they don't. What they do is they go off and sign up for some cloud-based system, some SaaS solution, or they start working in Excel. They use the tools they have. They use SharePoint lists. And you get this shadow IT where data is now all over the place, but no control. IT doesn't have visibility of it. We've also got the problem is people have massive expectations. They're used to nice little apps that work on their phone. They just pick up and use, whereas we build complex business applications that require a lot of training to use, get very unsatisfied users. And if we do build business applications, there's often no insights generated. There's no business intelligence reporting off them. There's no tracking of if they're used. And you've got a massive issue about where is everything. And I need to be able to leverage data in maybe legacy systems. I need to get it out and maybe use it. I need to make sure we're following all our strong compliance needs. And this is really what the Power Platform tries to solve. It tries to solve the fact that it's expensive and hard to build new things, or to even use what we already have and leverage it to create new things. Power Platform is going to allow me to build apps and flows cheaply to get around time and resource constraints. I can build them without having hardcore technical developers. I can get the subject matter experts who know the process to build them or be involved in the build. We can leverage existing data sources. We can connect to existing data. This is one of the most important things about the Power Platform. We can reuse what's already there. We don't have to rip and replace. And we do this with an underlying platform that's supported by Azure Active Directory. So we've got full security, full track. It's got everything we do tracked with the Microsoft Graph. Every time somebody runs a flow or an app, it's tracked. We've got insights into what's happening. And we can build nice things that people like to use. So we get around all of these problems that have surfaced because people had to just use what they're about, what they have. So really what this is one of the my key values of the Power Platform is we can work with the data where it lives. And it should say over 1,000 now. I thought I'd updated it. We have over 1,000 connectors now to Microsoft, non-Microsoft, and other services. Or we can use Dataverse. Okay, so we can use Microsoft Dataverse or Data Store. We'll talk more about that in a bit. In terms of Power Apps, we can build when people often refer to Power Apps, they often talk about what we call Canvas apps. So Canvas apps are web and mobile applications which we can make look like anything. You can build them with a mixture of PowerPoint and Excel skills. We use drag and drop. We can add images, we can add videos in, we can make use of the camera really easy just by dragging a camera control in, for instance. And we link it all together with Excel-like formulas. And the idea behind these is we don't need to be a developer. It uses declarative type programming. We don't need to write complex scripting. It just works. Okay, and this is what most people think of these. And we can deploy these very easily onto mobile apps without any deployment costs. You just access them through your app. You sign into your Office 365 account and you get access to the apps that have been shared with you. There's zero deployment costs. We've then got model-driven apps. Now, model-driven apps are based on top of Dataverse, and they actually come from the Dynamics world. And essentially, these are forms on top of data that allow us to build applications for people who basically sit at a computer screen and process data through a business process, either from start to end, or they collect data and then they track what's going on. You've typically got a workload that you have to manage. We'll talk more about them in a bit. And then we've got what used to be called portal apps, but are now Power Pages, where we can expose that same data out on a website. And this website is all managed in Azure. There's no deployment. So I want to create a Power Pages site. It deploys it all to Azure. And you just go and drag and drop some controls in it into the designer, and away you go. So anybody can build quite a nice looking website fairly easily without writing any HTML or CSS or anything. So when you come to the exam, one of the key things is understanding which type of app I use for different scenarios. And we'll talk a little bit. I'm going to give you a couple of little differences later on, but it's one of the classic exam questions. Which sort of app do I use? Or when should I build an app, or when should I build a Power Automate flow? So Power Automate does what it says on the tin. It's for automation within systems and across systems. And essentially, it works off how the modern internet works, which is REST APIs. Everything on the web is an API, and you just call it. And all Power Automate does is allow me to say, I'm going to call this system with its API, and it's going to return me some data. I'm going to take that data and call another API in another system. And all Power Automate does, it orchestrates the steps. So, for instance, I can fire a Power Automate flow when an email arrives. I can take that email, I can extract some data from it, and then go query a database. I can then take the results of that database and put it in an Excel spreadsheet, or send in an email, or create an item in a SharePoint list, or create an object in SAP. And essentially, it's a way of automating within and across systems. And it's really quite revolutionary. For me, Power Automate is the best tool to do this. And we've also now got the ability to do automation with which is called RPA, robotic process automation, where there's no API for the system, where the only interface is with the keyboard, mouse, and screen. And we can link both these legacy systems and cloud systems together with Power Automate to create an end-to-end integration or automation. I am rattling through this, and don't worry, you can watch the recording. I'm going to make the slides. The slides are going to be available at the end. So Power BI is about getting analytics, about connecting to data, I talk about telling a story about the data, allowing people to get their own insights or understanding what's going on within the data. And we very much use these together. We don't use these tools independently. They all supplement each other. I'll use Power Apps to capture data. I use Power Automate to maybe automate part of that data. I use Power BI to analyze that data to help people make decisions about that data. And that data can be in Dataverse or other systems. They can all access all these other services. And then we've got Power Virtual Agents, which is allows you to build a chatbot without writing any code. This is the interface here. The screenshot here is quite nice. It actually shows you how it works. We have typically a WYSIWYG interface. So on the right hand side, we've got the authoring pane where we have the questions and potential answers, and you can actually drag and drop those. You can. I get when I built these, I've got my subject matter experts, my end users to build these. The middle pane actually shows the chat as we're building it, so people can actually see the results straight away. And this is actually one of the way we get a lot of benefit and speed from the Power Platform. Is this WYSIWYG interface. You see it as you build it, so you know if it's right or wrong straight away. So that's the first of the objectives within the first section. The next one's this one, which is the business value. This is more about using the Power Platform with other Microsoft services. So with Dynamics 365, with Microsoft 365, so with Exchange, with SharePoint, with Teams, leveraging the Azure services such as Azure Cognitive Services. These are all typically through connectors. So this section here, when you come to look at it, is that how do I use it and leverage it? So you can build solutions, and I've done this. I've built solutions on top of Azure, where I effectively just build a Power App to control IoT devices. But all my Power App is doing is just calling into Azure, the Azure IoT Hub, to do things, or to Azure Functions to do things. And my Power App is just the visual user interface around that. Or we've done automations where somebody's done something in SharePoint, and when somebody does something in SharePoint, we automate what's happened and then push that data into other systems and link things together. So this section is around how do I use the Power Platform with other parts of the Microsoft ecosystem, primarily Dynamics, Microsoft 365 and Azure. And the final part of this first section is about administration and security. Power Platform is based on, it sits within your Azure Active Directory tenant. All authentication is all Azure AD. So we leverage all those nice identity management parts of the solution. But as well as that, it has its own security management on top of that. We have this concept of environments, which you'll need to understand. And then we often talk about governance. Governance is a really big topic because people get scared when the IT people get scared when they talk about, allowing anybody to build an app. Well, that's going to lead to chaos. I don't think the IT people realize people are still doing this in Excel. They're not doing it, if you know what I mean. They're doing something outside the purview of IT. But people get scared about how I do this, and we've got some great tools for discovery and management and governance within the Power Platform. So this is quite an important set of topics. And what are you going to need to be aware of? Again, a little hint on here. Which portal do I use for which? You know, if when you go to the Power Platform, we're going to have to manage my users and licensing in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. Power Platform has its own admin center for managing its environments, the databases. We've got the Maker portal for building apps and the Power Automate portal for building flows. And you'll need to understand which portals you'll need to use for which area. So that's not 15 minutes for the first one. We might finish this in an hour. Okay, so let's look at the core components. This is the next objective. This is primarily about connectors and Dataverse. It is 10 to 15% of the exam. And essentially, we're going to talk about connectors. Connectors are used in our apps and the flows to connect to all these cloud services. So we say we use these REST APIs to connect to Microsoft 365 services, to Dynamics, to SAP, to Azure SQL, to Cognitive Services, to MailChimp. There's literally over 1,000 connectors now. And what we do with these, with the connectors, because they connect cloud services using these RESTful APIs. And this is how Power Apps and Power Automate link to these services. They use the data where it lives. We also leverage the on-premise data gateway that allows us to connect to on-premise SharePoint, on-premise SQL. For instance, one of the first Power Apps I built, a customer came to me and said they had this legacy Windows SQL client server, or SQL server on-premise system, and they wanted to move that entire system to the cloud. And it was about product management. It was about their products and their product configurations. It was quite a complex setup. Their products were, there are thousands of products with lots of rules about what could be used and which safely. And what they wanted was, eventually when I got to the real requirement, was they needed their salespeople to look up on their phone, just look up some information. That's all they needed. But originally they said, we want to move this to the cloud. And I said, I've got a quicker way. Because this was, I'd have to learn to move that entire system to the cloud. I'd have had to redevelop it. It was a rip and replace. writing a brand, we'd have to write a web application, we'd have to understand actually all the rules and things in the system, because it's a massive rule-based system. It was built years and years ago with not very good documentation and been customized over the years. So I said, well, what you actually need is quite limited. So all I did was use the on-premise data gateway to the on-premise SQL Server, and I built a little Canvas app that just allowed them to look up a product and see all the issues or see all the related products. They could choose 2 products and say whether they worked or not. I was able to build that in less than a week. And most of that time I was trying to figure out how their system worked. The actual technical stuff took less than a day. And this is where the Power Platform really starts to excel. The fact that I can just use data analysts, we can leverage existing systems, we can use the existing investment without having to do rip and replace, and we can do it really, really quickly. Now, when you talk about connectors, there's 2 real types of connectors. There's the ones that are tabular data. So where essentially, if you look at those connectors, they're all got the same sort of actions they perform, like create record, update record, retrieve record, doing some sort of query. They all use different verbs and nouns, like one might be add a row, one might be create a record, but essentially they're the same thing. So databases or even Excel. And then you've got other connectors, which are very much based around what they do, like the Twitter connector is a really good example. I can do things like send a tweet. I can retrieve somebody's profile and see what their number of followers are. But it's very tied to those that service and what those services APIs expose. So, but when you look at connectors, they really do fall into these 2 types. Now, if you've got a system that has an API but doesn't have a connector, we can create a custom connector. And a really good example of this is Shopify. Shopify is an online e-commerce site where you can go and set up your own online store. We had a customer which says basically they want to know when a new order had been placed. So there's no connector for Shopify, so I created a custom connector. And all I did on all the custom connectors is to describe that API in a way that Power Apps and Power Automate can understand. Essentially, you just wrap the API with what we call a Swagger file. And we can use these to access things. And this is often how I do a lot of my work now with this. So this is a custom connector is something it's useful to understand. And for every connector, they have 2 things. They have triggers and they have actions. So triggers are used to automatically start Power Automate flows. They effectively trigger the Power Automate cloud workflow. So for instance, a trigger in Outlook connector could be when an email arrives in my inbox, I can trigger an automatic flow. That's what a trigger is. Or when a record's created, trigger doing something. So every connector has 1 or more triggers. Well, not every connector has more, but most connectors have triggers. They're triggers defined by the connector. And then they have actions. What can you do in that service through their API? So when somebody says, what can Power Automate do? I says, well, it can do anything because it's what the connectors do. And often when you build a flow or an app, you're actually linking multiple connectors together to create mashups between services. So I can pull data in from multiple data sources and then link them together, then do something with that data. I don't need to integrate at the data layer, pull that data together first, then build an app. I do it in the app or the flow. I pull that data together. Right, next bit, Dataverse. So Dataverse is a cloud-based data store for the Power Platform. And you'll see here, there's a list of things you need to know, like difference between the Dataverse and database. We'll get into that. What's tables, columns, and relationships, some data flows and some other things. Now, I'm going to concentrate on mainly what it is here. There's a bit more reading you can do. But essentially, it's a cloud data store that runs inside the Power Platform. And it's our data store of choice if I don't have existing data. So if I've not got an existing data source, I use Dataverse. And the reason why we want to use Dataverse is highly scalable. I can build a database. I don't need to be a DBA. I don't need to write T-SQL to do this. I can create tables and columns through the user interface really easily, with a click and point interface. And our app, and it has this what we call metadata driven. So it has lots of properties around the table, and apps and flows understand that. And it actually makes building your apps and flows easier. It does automated backup, and it is what I say, it's more than just a database. In fact, everything in Dataverse is an API. I can call, and that's how we use it. And this means it's highly extendable and highly configurable. I can write anything I like it, even custom code. It's underpinned by Azure Active Directory security. It's got inbuilt auditing. It's got inbuilt security. It's got built-in logic for calculations and validation, duplicate detection. It's got its own workflow engine, and we can extend it with plugin logic. In terms of, it leverages Azure Cognitive Search. We can go have, it's got its own reporting capabilities and validation. In terms of how it's stored internally, it actually uses a mixture of Azure SQL Server Elastic Pools, Azure Blob Storage, and Cosmos DB, and other things as well, and even Azure Data Lake. And it has full integration. It has a full event model built in, which allows to export data out to Azure Synapse, for instance, or to hook into some Azure services like Azure Service Hub, Event Hubs, for instance. So it's a very, very powerful solution for a platform, a data platform for building business solutions on. And I can just go, I don't have to worry about managing it. It's all, the backup and recovery is all handled for me. It uses AI to manage all its indexing and management of the database. And that's all hidden from you. Actually, before I go on, Dataverse is one of these things. It's so crucial to the Power Platform for actually making great solutions. It's one of the big underpinnings of it. And pretty much all the PL exams focus on Dataverse as really a key component. So it's one of those things you'll need to understand especially if you're coming from SharePoint area where you probably use SharePoint List as your data source or other data sources. You need to understand a bit more about Dataverse. So Power BI is our analytics tool. You see it's got quite a lot. It's 20 to 25% of the exam at the moment, which is probably a bit larger than some of the others. And essentially, you need to understand how you use Power BI, what you use it for. It's got three different objectives there. What are the components? So difference in Power BI desktop versus Power BI service. What's the difference between a dashboard and a report? How's the security model work? And then what's the process you go through? Using Power Query to clean and transform your data. Understanding a little bit about data sets and sharing then reports and dashboards. And then finally, it's got this bit about how do I create a dashboard, create a report, actually what you need to go through. So that's this. It's quite broad. There's a lot there right now. And so essentially, when I say Power BI, you need to understand there's three separate components. Most people, when they think of Power BI, they think of the Power BI service. They go to powerbi.com and you go view your reports and dashboards. That's the consumer end of it. If you're doing anything to do with Power BI, you're going to be using Power BI Desktop, which is a Windows application, and that's where you create your data sets. That's where you get your data in. You cleanse and transform it. You create your data set. You model your data. You create your star schema, you go create your measures and KPIs, etc. Create your visualizations before you then publish up to the Power BI service. And that's where you create your dashboards and then share it out with other people. And then there's a mobile app where you just consume the dashboards that have been created in the Power BI service. So that's a key thing, understanding what you do where. And the other thing you need to do is understand the process you go through. So we connect to data using Power BI Query. I go extract and transform the data. So I can go connect. You don't need to know exactly how to do it, but it's the process you go through and what you do. So over here, I'll go connect to my data, go pull it into my Power BI desktop. And I'll use Power BI Query to go and we talk about shaping the data, getting rid of null values, maybe changing the data types, making it more, maybe calculating some values that mean something to users. Before I then go create my visualization. To create the visualization, that's the easy bit. You just go drag and drop the fields from your data set onto the report canvas. And then go and select your visualization type. It's very easy to do this bit. Actually, the visualizing is probably the easiest bit. So little slide I've got here, which I think describes all the key things. Difference between Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service. Understanding this is really important for this exam. So it's what you do where. And there's a subtle change. So Microsoft historically, Power BI service is just where you created shared the dashboard. You put everything in Power BI desktop and then publish up to Power BI service, and then you created the dashboards and shared those. Now, what's sort of happened now is Power BI service is getting more and more capabilities from Power BI desktop. I think Microsoft's aim over the long term is essentially get rid of Power BI desktop and do everything in the Power BI service, which is essentially in a web client. But right now, that's not possible. So we do desktop and we do service. So understand that basic structure. And the other key thing you need to understand, what's the difference between a report and what's the difference between a dashboard? Because when you look at them, they look the same. They both contain visualizations. The key difference really is a report can have multiple pages. A dashboard is essentially a single pane of glass, but can contain visualizations of individual report pages. But what I can do, once I've got the dashboard, I can then use those visualizations in a dashboard in my apps, in my Power Apps. I can embed them in there. So you need to go to a dashboard before I can embed in my apps. They embed the dashboards and tiles from my dashboards in my apps. Okay. So that was very brief. I'm trying to not go too long because I could spend all day on this. Let's look at Power Apps now. Not got here. So we've got, again, it's got 3 sections. Identify the Power App components, which is really different in Canvas and model-driven apps. Then it's got how do I build a Canvas app, and then how do I build a model-driven app. Okay, so really this is more about, we're getting into the very simple how to do things, which is unusual for fundamentals where you're normally about concepts. Here, actually going in the process, how do I build an app? This is why it's important both to get hands-on, do the labs, so you can go build a dashboard in Power BI, or build a report in a report and dashboard in Power BI, build a Canvas app, build a monitoring app. So when you come to the exam, you know what they're talking about. One of the problems is we've got a lot of terminology, a lot of concepts that are very different, and the Power Platform is very broad. So it's really important to get hands-on. So let's just skip this and talk about, I think, key things. So Power Apps are about low-code or no-code apps. We talk about working with the data where it lives, using connectors, or working in Dataverse. And when we look at the types of Power Apps, the Canvas apps, they're called a Canvas app because they're a blank canvas. We often refer to them as pixel perfect apps because I can control every single pixel, its color, its layout, and everything. And we just build a Canvas app by connecting to different data sources and dragging the controls around, and then using some little Excel-like formulas to link things together. So once I click on a button, what do I want to do? We do an Excel-like formula. Model-driven apps are essentially forms on top of the tables and relationships in Microsoft Dataverse. They're called model-driven for 2 reasons. One, because they're sitting on top of the data model. And the other is they've got a very strict user interface model. Every model-driven app looks like every other model-driven app. The navigation's down the left-hand side. You can't change the fonts. You can't change the colors. The forms essentially 1, 2, or 3 column. I can't change the spacing between the fields. But it does an awful lot of the work for you. I don't need to add all the navigation buttons. It understands how to navigate, and it navigates leveraging the one-to-many relationship, the many-to-one relationships between the records. And portals or Power Pages, which we used to have portal apps. They're now Power Pages, now a separate part of the Power Platform. But if you're taking the exam right now, it still probably refers to portal apps. They are websites that expose Dataverse data out to customers. They allow customers to interact. For instance, if I can have customers can log their own service tickets, and they can see what's happening with those tickets, or if they can place an order, and they can see the status of that order. That's what there are. So when I look at Canvas apps here, I'm going to focus. We're not going to right now. Let's just go back. There's very little on portals or Power Pages in the exam right now, other than just understanding that it's an externally facing website. There's nothing else right now. When we come to Canvas apps, we need to understand what it's used for and where they are. So we talk about a highly tailored end user experience. We start from the user interface rather than the data. When they typically build Canvas apps, they're little apps that you pick down and put up pick up and put down as part of your job. Use them as part of your job. You're not the job. You're not sat in front of them all day. You're not going to launch a Canvas app and use it all day, like in front of a computer. That's what a model-driven app's for. Okay, it's a very simple WYSIWYG design. You get a one tool and you build the app inside what we call the Power App Studio. I build on my different screens and link them together. And we use formulas, Excel-like formulas. It's a true WYSIWYG designer. You actually see, I add a control onto the screen. It immediately starts working and I can see how it works and see how it interacts with the rest of the application. Yeah, so it uses those connectors we talked about before. The connectors are really the bit, so we can connect to go to SharePoint, or SQL, or to Azure Blob Storage, and use those very, very easily. Leverage those existing services. They can actually say bring more than one data source in at once. And you do this from what we call the Maker portal, make.powerapps.com. And we've got 3 different ways of creating an app. Well, actually 2 main ones. And create a Canvas app from blank, where you start with a blank canvas, or you can actually start from data, where you pick, say, a SharePoint list, or a table in Excel, or a table in SQL, or a table in Dataverse, and it creates a 3-screen application. You get what we call a browse screen, which gives you a query and a list of records. You get a view screen where you can go and view an individual record. And you've got an edit screen where you can create and edit create new records and edit records, and it builds that for you. And that's the level that you need to know for the Power Platform, for the PL-900 fundamentals. It's that start from data option, where you point it at an existing table of data, and it builds you this nice, simple application. I've actually got a recording of this, so I'll give you a link to it in a bit where I've done it. And it's one of the labs. You start from data. And it's often the best way of getting started because it teaches you how it works, because it builds a fully functioning 3-screen application. And that's what it expects you to know. When I went back and said, okay, when we went back to here and it said, okay, build a basic app. And it is create an app from data. We see that there's a 3rd bullet point. That's what we mean there. And then maybe just tweak the controls a bit. That's really the level we're at. It's not about understanding all the ins and outs of building a Canvas app. It's just about understanding. And this is what the Power App Studio looks like, where you can see the canvas in the middle, where we can actually see the fields as we're adding it. On the left-hand side, we've got a tree view, which shows all the different components. On the right-hand side, we've got properties, which if you were to look like, they look like PowerPoint and properties. You can change all the fonts, the colors, the positions. And we've got along the top a lot of ability to add buttons and actions and perform things, as well as filling in the formula bar at the top there as well. Most people find Canvas apps really easy to get started with. Model-driven apps tends to be a harder learning curve. And that's because we actually have loads of separate designers. We have a table designer, but everything's different. So I've got a form designer, a view designer, a chart designer, a dashboard designer, an app designer, a business rule designer, each of which has their own little interface. So there's lots of different settings to do. It's harder to learn, but they are a true no-code environment. I can build an app on top of my Dataverse data model. So you build your tables, you build your relationships, you add your columns in, and it actually builds the user interface for you. You've got forms there already. You just go drag and drop the fields on the form, add it to an app, and you've got a working application literally in an hour. I can have an app up and running on a few tables. We actually talk about composing the app from all its components. Okay. And we add in all the little bits, little components, and it then works out at runtime. Essentially, it's simply, we talk about it's just forms on top of data. So here's an example screenshot. I'll answer the question in a second, where we've got this 3-column layout. It always looks like this. So this is slightly old screenshot, but simple. So best practice building model-driven app, get your data correct. Get your data model 100% right to begin with, because it's very hard to start changing it if you're changing your data model after you start building your app on top of it, because you have to undo everything, you have to unpick everything. So what I normally do is I get I'm a I'm a strong data back. I used to teach data modeling 30 years ago. So I'm a big getting your data model right. I normally do my data modeling. I knock up a proof of concept and I check that my and then I build a quick app and I check that my process flows and I check that it supports my reporting requirements. And then I go build my app properly. The other thing is think about user interface, be consistent. There is, I tend to do this 3-column layout where the first column is the columns on the table. The middle column is often what we call the timeline, all the activities, interactions, and the right-hand column is all the related, my end-to-one and one-to-end relationships with different data. I also have a mantra: users don't scroll. So if I find myself having a scroll bar, I've got a problem because users will not scroll off the bottom of the screen to find what they need to enter. So think about the layout. And possibly build, we also with modular apps, we can have different forms of different users. So a user, an end user might have one form on a table, a manager or an administrator might have a different form with a different layout. I always try to optimize for that user's experience, which you can do. You build different forms, different apps for different types of users, because people want to look at data in different ways. So hopefully that answers your question. And here I've just got a little variation why I use one rather than another. Canvas versus model. Canvas can do multiple data sources. It's a single editor, where model-driven app is Dataverse only. I have an editor for each component, but they're both extendable. They both work on web and mobile clients. It's something people don't forget. Right, I'm speeding up. I'm not going to go too far. I could spend all day. I love Power Automate. It's so powerful. What you're going to do in here is we need to understand the different types of flow. We've got cloud, desktop, and business process flows. I've already talked a bit about triggers and actions. And then you've got this how to build a basic flow. So when we look at different flows, there are 3 parts of Power Automate. Cloud flows, and what I've described so far, is the automation across the cloud using the APIs, where we trigger a cloud flow on something happening in some system. It's Microsoft's version of if this, then that. So if somebody creates a record, then go do something in another system. And you just use the APIs, the cloud, to link those together. Desktop flows are for robotic process automation, where there's no API. The only interface is the keyboard, mouse, and screen. So we effectively simulate a user sitting at a screen with the keyboard and mouse. And business process flows really aren't Power Automate. They are actually a model-driven app feature, and they guide the user through a business process as to what to enter next. They're really about, what should I do at this point? What should I do at the next point? But they've got the word flow in them, so they group them here. It's wrong, but that's where it is right now. And a cloud flow looks like this. It always starts at the top with the trigger. So this has got when a record's created. And we're going to start approvals. Now, approvals, one of the things you need to understand. Approval is the ability, I need this expense approved, or I need this device, request for a device approved, or I need an expense approved. And the approvals are an inbuilt part functionality in Power Automate that goes and sends an email out to somebody, and it has an approve or reject button in it. You can also monitor your approvals within Microsoft Teams or in the Power Automate portal. So I'm going to give you a good bit of recommendation is to understand the approvals. I think actually if I go back, I think it's here. It's a describe use case for approvals. It's one of the bullet points. You're going to get a question on it in the exam. So understand what approvals are. And then essentially the approval comes back and reject or approve or reject. And then we've got essential an if condition, if then. So if it's true, go down the yes path. On the left, if it's false, go down the no path. So we've got a bit of logic handling. Power Automate, all it does is take it essentially says, take this step, perform this step on that system, then take the result of that step, and then do something else. So essentially it takes the output of one step, puts as the inputs of the other step. And we've got a bit of branching and looping logic to handle it, to basically do that bit of logic around. That's all Power Automate Cloud Flow is. It's really an orchestration tool for linking different systems together. And as I said before, the connectors, we've got every connector has its triggers and its actions, and that's what we use. The trigger is what starts the flow, and the actions of what we do in the flow. And it's very common in a flow to have a trigger saying on start of a record being created in Azure SQL. I can then go send an email by using the Outlook connector, then maybe go call an Azure Cognitive Service with the that connector, then maybe go and create a document and put it into Dropbox. I can do all of that by using different connectors in the same flow, leveraging the actions for each connector. There's one other thing you need to know about, and that's the different trigger types. What I've talked about so far are what we refer to as automated. So they trigger when something happens in a system. That's what we're talking about, triggers. We've also got two other types of trigger. First is scheduled, which is incredibly useful. It means, say, run every hour, or run every day, or run at 6 p.m. on a Friday. So run on a schedule, one of my favorites. And the other is instant. Instant typically means they're run manually. So we've got this concept of a button flow, which I can have a flow. I can have a button on my mobile, which when I tap, it'll launch a flow. Or there's other ones. The other way we use instant flow is to call the flow from something else. So for instance, we can call a flow from a Power App. So I can have a formula in that. I can press a button in a Canvas app. That runs a formula, and that formula triggers a instant cloud flow. And that flow then could do things. And this is a very common pattern we have. We'll see it in Power Virtual Agents. I can use Power Automate from within Power Virtual Agent with an instant flow. So Power Virtual Agents, which are the chatbots, can't actually access data directly. What they do is they call an instant flow to go retrieve the data or to create data. So we've got and so again, quite important to understand the trigger types. Classic sort of question in the exam. And then business process flows, they are a model-driven app feature. And you see them along the top here. It's the quality non-conformance. This is actually for one of my systems. I'll do an ISO system where we had non-conformances. And what it says here, if you have a non-conformance gets created, we then have to go through a series of stages. So we've got the quality stage, the non-conformance stage, and then the verify stage. And essentially what we do is we're prompting the user as to what to do next. They guide the user through a series of stages. They're really actually easy to do. The interface is actually quite simple. They're quite powerful. But they're not really Power Automate. They're model-driven app. And then I mentioned we've got desktop flows for typically the legacy application where there's no API. And essentially what we do is we can record what a user does and play it back. Here's actually a flow that I wrote that went off. I actually did it in a web application, but it can be done for Windows. It's Windows only, really. And go simulate a user clicking on something or typing something in, and I can scrape the result out of a field on a screen and take that and pass that out or do something with it. Desktop flows, really, the knowledge of these is mainly in the exam, is mainly about cloud flows, but you need to differentiate between desktop and cloud flows and business process flows. Right, my final section before I talk about resources is Power Virtual Agents, and I'm not going to spend a long time on this because look at this percentage. It's 1 to 5%, which might mean you might get 2, maybe 3 questions if you're unlucky on Power Virtual Agents where it's described the capabilities. So the key things you need to understand, if I was going to tell you to focus on one thing, is to understand what a topic is, understand what an entity is. So a topic is essentially the conversation. A chatbot has multiple topics. Essentially, each topic is a separate conversation. So, for instance, if the one that comes when you create a chatbot to begin with, it actually comes with 4 topics. One is about the opening, it's for a retail organisation. What is the opening hours of a store? That's one topic. Another topic is what products you sell. Another topic is how to place an order. And the other, I think, is where you're located, what stores you have, where they're located. So each topic is a separate conversation with its own questions and answers. Entities are things that help you understand what it's about. So it's got pre-built entities. It understands what dates are. It understands that tomorrow is a date. It understands that Julian is a name. It understands that Paris is a city. And that so it's really about those common business objects. It understands what a passport number and email addresses. So it's able to help you understand. It actually leverages AI, uses natural language to understand what somebody's asking and enable you to perform a response. You don't have to add in all the ways somebody can ask. You just give it some sample, what we call trigger phrases, and it works out which topic it is and what the answer is. And again, you need to do this basic build a chatbot. So go through chatbot, create a topic. And then, as I mentioned, we call Power Automate instant flows to do work. So that's what, but it's not worth spending a lot of time on right now, because it is a tiny portion of the exam compared to the others. Right, resources. This is where I'm going to slow down a bit. I've really rammed that through, and we haven't got much time. I wanted to give you a flavour and understanding some key points. So anybody got any questions before? Let me take a breath. Any questions? Okay, so what I'm going to give you first off is the Microsoft Learn material. So Microsoft Learn, if you don't know, it's Microsoft's online learning. This is the link to it. I'm going to give you all these links in a minute, but I should put them in the chat now as we go through. So here you can go and have a look at this if you want. It consists of a series of modules. Let's see, if I just click on it, we'll have a quick look at it. It should open up on my screen now. It's open up on the wrong screen. So here it is. What you've got is 10 modules. Basically what I've been through, it talks about Power Platform. We see here the value of the Power Platform, what are connectors, Dataverse, I mentioned, in what environments, I mentioned these tools, environments and business rules, I mentioned these terms. No is the answer, but you can hide it. Yeah, system required column is, so any correct column, some are, you can set them as required or not required, but some are system required, such as owner, that you can't remove those. The only way, if it's on a form, the only way you can do is hide it so it doesn't appear. Like the owner form is sometimes really annoying. Just, you can go to the properties of the field on the form and just hide it. But here it is, this is your main learning. And within these, if I go to say how to build a Canvas app, it's got an exercise. It's got a 30-minute exercise, which takes you through step by step, building an app from data and exploring it. Okay, so it takes you through everything you need on that. Okay, so you'll find little exercises inside each of these, especially around how to build a Canvas app, how to build a model-driven app as well. Okay, 25 minutes, create a model-driven app, takes you through the process of doing it. They also may have some videos. Some of them got some videos in as well. Yeah, dashboard. Yeah, how to build a dashboard. Yeah, build a dashboard. And then the Power Visualizations is quite short because it's only 1 to 5% at the moment. So that's your first thing. I would go through these. I would not skip reading through these. It's not bad. I do think they're a little light for the exam. You need to get hands-on. Your other major use for something is the exam page. This is where you'll book the exam from. It's also got that study guide. So if I just go to this page here, we'll have a look at the study guide. So on here, it says study guide. Yeah, review the study guide. If I just click on this, it's now, it used to be a PDF. It's now just a page on Microsoft Learn. But what it has, it's got the breakdowns. I went through this on my slides. I just copied and pasted these and tried to describe what those are. So it's got this breakdown. And the way the exam's written is, as I said, when somebody writes an exam question, you ask, Julian, can you write 3 questions on the Power Platform Administration Security? And I'll pick, say, data policies or environments or analytics. But the way they write, they have about 8 or 10 writers on the questions. So all the bullet points may get questions on, but you will only get a subset of the questions. You won't get asked on every single bullet point. Okay, you will only get asked on a subset of them based on the percentages. The other thing is you get percentage here, 20 to 25%, and that's across all those 3 there. But internally, Microsoft doesn't give us the numbers, but one of these will be higher. I'm pretty sure maybe that might be 10%, that might be 10%, and that might be 5%. I don't know. There is a split, but they don't tell us that. Okay, so you've got the study guide. Also, you've got this link to the learning path, which I gave you earlier. So the link to the learning path is there as well. So you can go to that. You've also got what's new is this practice assessment. So if you go down here, you see now, if you scroll down, take a free practice assessment. This is your friend. If you launch this, it takes you into an exam like you've got 50 questions. You get questions written like they are in the exam. They're written in the same way. I've actually written some of these. I don't write exam questions, but I've written some of these. So about 25 of these are mine. There's a pool of 100 questions, and you get 50 at random. And you just have to go, okay, what should I use? This is a terrible question, but I'm going to go next. And you just go through, and if you want to say, okay, what features are you? Check your answer. It's going to tell me the right answer as well. So these are really good ways of learning. Do I understand it deeply enough? And they've been written by the same people who write, not exactly, because you're not allowed, Microsoft tells you, if you write the exam questions, you can't write the practice assessments. So they're written independently, but the process they're written by is exactly the same. The way they do them is the same. And we've got practice assessments for pretty much all the fundamentals now. They will be doing more of them. So that's where that is. Really useful way of validating your knowledge. Okay, that's on the exam page, which I've put the link on it. So I'll put that in here. Right. Next, we have, I've got links to the study guides, I've got that, and the exam simulation, which is worthwhile. I'd actually go through it. If you've never taken a Microsoft exam before, do this, because it'll actually show you the screens you see. It's the worst thing you do is panic when you start the exam. You haven't got long, and most people panic because they're not sure what the user interface is like. So do go through this. The questions are pretty rubbish on it because they're more Windowsy and networky type rather than Power Platform, but they are at least like showing the exam question types. It allows you to get an idea of what the interface looks like. I've also got a link to the practice assessment here. There's also some sample questions, which before we had the practice assessments, we had these sample questions where there are 20 questions. Okay. And you just go through and do them. And it's also got the answers. So you go through, you basically have to write it down yourself. And then if you go down, it's got the answers. And you can check, it explains the answers for you. So you've got those as well. I'll put you a couple of people. Jens is a TS from Microsoft Denmark. Stanislas is a PTA Microsoft France. They've written little guides on the PL-900. Unfortunately, these are a couple of years old now, but they're still worthwhile. The exams change, but not that much. So they're worthwhile having a look at. Stanislas has got some videos in, for instance, as well. Okay, so I've got those, and I'm going to put those links in the chat as well for you. And then we've got the Microsoft documentation. Trouble with docs is it's really descriptive. It's a lot of information there. It's quite hard to read everything. You can't read it. It's not training material, it's reference material. But sometimes it's quite useful to look up things if you don't understand them. But there's always a good way maybe to do it. Maybe not necessarily for fundamentals. It's probably, too complex for fundamentals. But it still might be worth you doing it. These are the hands-on labs. Okay, so these are labs in GitHub. If I go to these got step-by-step labs. If you want to get hands-on, like I want to go build a Canvas app, it tells you step-by-step what to do. It's got screenshots showing you how to. They're not long, but that's what you do in fundamentals. You just need to have that basic how to create something. So that's what those are. Those are the labs: build an app, build a flow, build a dashboard. There is what we call measure up self-test. This you'll have to pay for. This is built like the Microsoft exam. It's written the same way again, but is unlike this practice assessment. The practice assessments I showed you only have single and multiple choice questions. There are a lot more question types. Measure Up has all the different question types. The issue though from Measure Up is it's about as much as the exam for fundamentals. So it really is quite hard to justify unless you can get it relatively cheap. They do offers every now and again. They can be quite useful, but I use them on some of the other exams. So I've taken some advanced Azure exams and I've used Measure Up. They're really good because the practice assessments tell you why the answer's right. They don't tell you why the other answers is wrong. Measure Up gives you a lot more information, a lot more rationale as to why. It gives you a lot more links. The assessments really just say this is the right answer and why. They don't tell you why all the other answers are wrong. Measure Up will tell you everything. It's a really good learning experience. And if you want, Microsoft runs virtual training days, depending on your country. I've got links here for the UK and US ones. There is actually one on Friday in the UK, but it's actually full. I checked. You can't book it. But the great thing about this, it's a 3-hour, so it's a bit longer, where they go through some key concepts, and often you'll get the free exam voucher. So they're worthwhile attending just to get those. I'm not sure how long Microsoft's going to be doing these. I have a feeling they might be stopping them at the end of June. I have one more list, which is my link here. This is a link to my OneDrive. Where I've got a copy of these slides, plus also my recordings of my demos, so you can actually watch me creating an app, and also some other exam prep stuff I've done in the past. It's a bit out of date, it's last year's, but it's there. So Kevin asked, is the resource you recommend to us for a large enterprise? Well, if you're a large enterprise, you've got ESI, so you might be able to get the training. Oh, if you're a large company, you might actually have free exams through your company. And also if you work for a Microsoft partner, you might have free exams, depending on what your partner credentials are. So it's always worth asking for the exam vouchers. Microsoft gives those out, and they also give training if you happen to be a large customer. It depends. It depends on the country. It depends on how much you spend. Yeah. So Kevin's put the link to the ESI program, which you can find out if your company is a member of. And I'm just going to finish off with this little thing, which is that there are some changes coming to the exam. These aren't public yet, but they're adding in more. So Power Pages is going to be making an appearance. It isn't in there right now. AI Builder, at a very high level, is coming in. AI Builder's ability to create your own machine learning or predictions based off your data in Power Platform. They're thinning down Power Virtual Agents even more. So removing some of the tassel topics, and there are some other things dropping off throughout. When it's published, you'll see there's a lot fewer bullet points, especially around some of the areas. Power BI is about halving. It's like 20-25%. I think it's going to go down to about 10 to 15%. Power Apps is going down by a small amount, but Power Automate's increasing. So they're just changing the balance a little bit. But they had to remove a bit to make space for Power Pages and AI Builder. So change. So if you are going to take the exam, make sure you do it before the 24th of March based on the learning material. Typically, when Microsoft changes the exam, the learning material takes a little while to catch up. So, for instance, there's nothing about AI Builder really in the Power Platform fundamentals. Actually, there's not very much in Microsoft Learn at all about AI Builder that's actually very useful. So again, the practice assessments won't include anything on AI Builder. They will in March. But it's actually been written, they just haven't been released yet. So that's it from me. I've gone over my time a little bit. I tried to keep to an hour, I've gone over. Thank you for staying with me. Does anybody have any questions? You can come off mute if you want.
Exactly. I'm going to stop the recording at this stage.
Yeah, it's always good so people can ask what they like.